So welcome to the Building Blocks of Staff Wellness webinar, exploring SafetyNet accreditation, a corrections-specific staff wellness accreditation program. And we're glad you could join us today. I'm Steve Mayotte, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Desert Waters, and I'll be the host for your webinar today. Just want to give you a few housekeeping items before we get going with our presenters. The first is that the webinar is being recorded, so it'll be available on the Desert Waters YouTube channel. And since all of you who are here with us have registered, I'll also be sending a link out to you with that recording. So if you need to leave, feel free to, and we will get you the recording for this webinar into your inbox, and it'll be on our YouTube channel. The other item is we're scheduled for 1 hour for this webinar. And feel free to post your questions throughout the webinar as we're going. We'll be compiling a list of questions that you put in the chat, and we will try and get to as many of those as we can at the end of the webinar. And we will also be, even though this is a 1 hour webinar, presenters will be staying on a little bit longer to answer those questions. So yeah, feel free, if your time only allows for 1 hour, feel free to go as needed, but know that we'll try and answer some of those questions, and they'll be on the recording. So those were the housekeeping items, and I will now move into introducing our presenters. Our first presenter is Dr. Katerina Spinaris. Katerina is the founding director of Desert Waters Correctional Outreach and a licensed professional counselor. She develops a wellness curriculum for corrections staff and has trained thousands of staff, has counseled with staff and families, and conducts research on ways to lessen corrections fatigue and increase corrections fulfillment. Our next presenter is Stephanie Rawlings. Stephanie is Desert Waters Chief Innovation Officer. She has 12 years of correctional experience with expertise in the area of developing, implementing, and overseeing staff wellness programming in large correctional organizations. She previously served as the Staff Wellness Program Administrator for the Illinois Department of Corrections. Greg Morton. Greg is Desert Waters Research Advisor. He worked for a state correction system for over 30 years, retiring as Administrator for Staff Training and Professional Development. He holds a master's degree in Industrial and Organizational Psychology, concentrating on work-related stress and trauma and their impact on first responders. And then lastly, we have Dave Taylor with Pursuit of Excellence. Dave Taylor is the lead consultant with Pursuit of Excellence. He previously served 32 years in corrections and law enforcement, and he currently works with agencies in the US and around the world on policy development and accreditation.
Well, good afternoon. It's a joy truly to have you here and see familiar faces on the screen. People I've walked with for years now and talked and addressed staff wellness issues together. Thank you for joining us, because I believe that what binds us together is a sincere interest and caring about correctional staff wellness, and in a lot of ways, not just them and their families, but also the future of the profession, which I believe hinges completely on the health and well-being and functioning of correctional staff. So a little bit about Desert Waters. It's a nonprofit established in Colorado in the year 2003. A little bit about our story. The way Desert Waters Correctional Outreach came about was when I moved from Denver in the year 2000 to Florence, Colorado, in Fremont County. I found myself in a county with 12 prisons, 1 jail, and immediately surrounding us another 5 prisons and 5 jails. And it was a saturated area with correctional personnel and families. And as I established my counseling practice there, I started getting a lot of what I call education from correctional staff and family members who came in for counseling work. And over time, I was looking for resources for them. I couldn't find really anything to speak of. And I felt that calling, compulsion, invitation to do something about it and step up and address the void that I was seeing. And at the time, really the talk about correctional staff wellness was not very popular and it was hardly anywhere. And so we stepped up and started Waters Correctional Outreach. And here we are 21 years later. And our expertise is training, mental health oriented and general wellness training for staff and families, and research that's been groundbreaking regarding mental health conditions and other issues in the corrections workforce. And now we are here to talk about taking it a step further to a organized, systematic staff wellness program instead of just trainings here and there and other initiatives. So thank you for being here, and we look forward to your questions as we go along. So Stephanie, it's all yours.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Katerina. We're actually going to start by looking at the subject of the current realities about correctional staff wellness and why it's a mission critical matter. And as we get started today, we're actually going to be taking a look at wellness from the organizational wellness point of view, not what an individual staff's wellness or their responsibility to their wellness is. And by that, I mean, we're going to discuss the programs that agencies are putting in place to help provide staff the support they need for their well-being. And a lot of these measures constitute the building blocks of wellness at the organizational level. And so just for clarification, as we get going today, we're going to be addressing it from that point of view and not at the individual level. As we get going, we're going to first talk about the concept of wellness. And we use that term wellness pretty freely and casually, but in reality, it's a really complex concept. And what that actually means can be really hard to pin down. And so when we looked at the research here, a recent review of wellness actually showed that there were 12 different definitions of that in 12 different articles. And so there's not a lot of uniform agreement on what that definition is. And so it's got a lot of dimensions. And due to that complexity of the definition, it also is really hard to operationalize in agencies. And so you're taking this kind of abstract concept and you're trying to pin it down in practical and concrete ways that can measure wellness and do things that promote wellness and the employee well-being. And so it's a fairly new area of study, and it's being pursued by employers, and it's an even newer study in the field of corrections. And we say all of this to say it's really a highly complex area to get into. And it's really not one of those areas where we can pull a bunch of things together without giving considerable planning and expertise. What we do know, I'm sure everybody on this call has some experience in this area, is that the current state of correctional wellness is at very high risk. And sadly, the working conditions are contributing to that risk. Correctional agencies are really critically understaffed right now, like a lot of agencies in the industries, and that doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. And so certainly that, with other occupational stressors from just working in corrections, is contributing to the chipping away at the wellness of staff. So research being conducted in several different areas over the years have shown alarmingly high levels of staff reporting mental health disorder symptoms and other health concerns. So we're going to take a look at a few examples here, and this is all about correctional officers. And this data is based on rates of COs self-reporting, meeting the criteria for mental health disorders on a valid screening instrument. So these levels are obviously really shocking. And they indicate that the high number of custody staff that may be suffering from some serious mental health disorder is much, much higher than the general public. And even more alarming is that while they're suffering from these disorders, we're also expecting them to continue working and conducting operations where a high level of self-control and interpersonal and communication skills are required, as well as really quick and accurate decision-making. And so these rates exceed, obviously, that of the general public, but even more surprising, they exceed rates of first responders. So here are some realities about the current conditions. It's really not surprising that these symptoms impair staff's functioning. They would impair anybody's functioning, doing any particular job. Although a lot of these symptoms are manifested through anger outbursts and aggression, forgetfulness, and more. And that's just the first reality. And that's really why we're all here today. And that's why staff wellness in correctional agencies is really mission critical. Correctional agencies tend to respond to these realities of staff unwellness by offering a variety of wellness initiatives. But this may be done kind of with not a lot of strategy. And so sometimes while they should be commended for any efforts that they're making, sometimes it misses the mark on a comprehensive and more strategic plan to fit all of these pieces together to really make a sizable or more impactful approach to wellness. And one of the other things that a lot of these programs don't include are support from other stakeholders like staff families, and without a lot of evidence-based practice on what helps and what doesn't help. And so what this means is that the need is great, but the response has not been meeting the need adequately to this point. And that's simply because there's no guidance and structure on how to promote staff wellness. And there are not a lot of standards to follow or aspire to meet. And without input sought from the staff as to what they believe may even impact their well-being from their employer as well. So what we're looking at today is really an effort to kind of standardize and create strategy for these agencies as they start to deploy these wellness initiatives. And the fact that anybody is doing anything for wellness right now should be highly commended, because there are some agencies who don't want to do anything. And so those who are implementing any type of wellness programming or strategy should be congratulated and really commended for their efforts up to this point. I'm going to turn it over to Greg.
Thanks, Stephanie. So as we talked about those problems, we, in this case being Desert Waters staff, joined by Pursuit of Excellence, because of their excellent history working with organizational standards. As we looked at those problems, then we scratch our head and say, what are we going to do about it? And what the next two slides are essentially kind of a problem-solving, decision-making math. You have problem one and you have problem two, and you add those together and you come up with a solution. But I must say that the problem solving was much more complicated than just 1 + 1 + 2. Complexities of promoting employee wellness. If you're trying to do that in your agency, I don't need to go any further. You already know how complex it can be. The wellness needs of a brand new employee and a tactical team member are going to be different. The wellness needs of a swing shift Saturday or holiday supervisor going to be different. Our wellness needs change as we age. Our medical conditions, our social conditions, our financial conditions. Employee wellness is very complicated. Add to that the severity that Stephanie just talked about. I just want to add one other thing. Stephanie mentioned that what we're presenting today is from the organizational perspective, and that is definitely the case. But those of you who are in the process of implementing at the organizational level, you're doing that for individual employees. And the numbers that were on the previous slide, the percentages and so on, those are overwhelming. And yes, we absolutely should pay attention to that. We should also, as we're doing this, recognize that we're talking about individual human beings, individual people. Yes, we come together in an organization to implement the mission of the organization, And what we're trying to do here with SafetyNet is increase the effectiveness of the organization, and by focusing on the wellness of each individual employee. So we had those two balls in the air, so to speak, but we didn't know what to do with them. And that's where Pursuit of Excellence came in, because of their history and experience in writing standards. And so this is just a short version of the months and months of Zoom sessions that we had, and Word document rewrites and so on, to come up with the material that we're going to present today. The idea being that we wanted that wellness requires a comprehensive perspective, very much big picture, but also manageable. And comprehensive and manageable can be contradictory sometimes. But if we have too big a picture and don't make it possible for the agency to implement, then we haven't really contributed anything. So that's what we're trying to deliver and cover today. Where we ended up with that is, as it said there with these 3 bullets, it's a big picture issue. Isolated wellness initiatives, as Stephanie said, high five to all of you for what you're doing. I remember a colleague I had years ago who said to me, Greg, what you're trying to do is not a little thing. Yes, what we are suggesting here is not a little thing. It is comprehensive and extremely varied. But in order to do that and make it be sustainable and manageable, it needs to be systematized. And that is what you will see as we go through the standards. And I just want to end with one notion. The standards, rigorous, objective, yes, you'll see that they have been written in that fashion, and provide for an external review. I just want to emphasize the fact that SafetyNet is not just I guess you'd call it a referee program, where we decide, yes, you passed, no, you didn't pass. There is a lot of coaching that goes into the SafetyNet activity when you work with us. We will be alongside right from the beginning when you identify your first interest, and we will continue to all the way through final accreditation, to whatever degree you feel that to be necessary. So the external process, Katerina will talk about this more, the external process, the external agency review is not just refereeing. Like I said, it's also coaching to the extent that you're interested or would find value in that. Thank you. Katerina?
Thank you, Greg. So we're going to be proceeding now with more specific information about the SafetyNet accreditation program, the concrete aspects of the program, because up to now we talked about why we need a rigorous and a program that involves accountability and external oversight. And now it's like, okay, what does the program look like? And so we proposed SafetyNet as a model such program, the first really of its kind anywhere that I know of for any profession. First of all, we're going to talk about the properties of that program, that is holistic, meaning it covers several areas of wellness, as many as we can think of and grasp. And a convenient way to do that was to use SAMHSA's 8 dimensions of wellness that cover everything from emotional to spiritual to financial to environmental, all 8 of them. So that's built into the SafetyNet standards. So in addition to the holistic aspect, is that we aimed for the standards to be data-driven, research-based, and where the research was poor or non-existent, like what are the best practices at this point? What is the evidence from the field at this point? Then having the material be systematically organized, so it's not haphazard or, like somebody said, like a yard sale, but it's more like a rigorous building with the architectural structure design behind it and engineering design behind it. and a rhyme and a reason for where things are and why they're there. And it's comprehensive, which makes it big, but at the same time, we didn't want to leave anybody behind. And we wanted to be for all professions, all ranks, all types, for example, prison, jail, probation, and parole, not just one entity in the criminal justice field, and make it correction specific at the same time. So comprehensive and correction specific, where there are issues that apply to staff that work in corrections that would not apply to some other profession. And we have built-in outcome measures, so there can be an evaluation component about what works and what doesn't work on an annual basis at least. And some of those measures would be provided by us, a survey, some would be the agency collecting those measures internally. Then something that Stephanie mentioned earlier, input from all stakeholders. We want to hear from staff, we want to hear from retirees, from people about to retire. We want to hear from family members. We want to hear from union members. We want to hear, even in some fashion, even from the people that are incarcerated or involved in the criminal justice system, about what they may see as needed for staff to be healthier, so they will be interacting with them in a healthier fashion. And then we wanted to be, my favorite, top-down, horizontal, and bottom-up as far as instituting initiatives, not just one person's pet project and one perspective, but three. And top-down, we mean administrative type of decision-making that is really primarily policy driven, and maybe legislation, and the big picture stuff. Horizontal is about how staff interact with each other, the workforce culture. And the bottom up is what only one individual can do on their own, and nobody can do it for them, where they take responsibility for their own well-being. And we believe very, very strongly that all three are necessary. You cannot just have a bunch of, for example, training or resources for bottom up, but have everything lacking in terms of top-down support and horizontal healthy environments. It's going to be very, very difficult for a person to swim upstream under those conditions. So we want all three to be involved. And then SafetyNet provides resources, and we also provide consultation with agencies, the coaching piece that Greg talked about earlier, walking alongside, because a lot of that stuff is for the first time that people are doing it. It's all new, and we learn as we go in some areas, and we learn from each other. And then we wanted to make it adaptable to all agencies, like I mentioned, big jail, small jail, probation, parole. So it's not just for one entity and the rest are excluded. So that's what I see as a unique value of SafetyNet. It has very high aspirations, but my sense is like we need to embrace the whole system. We cannot just embrace a little corner. We need to embrace everybody, so nobody feels left out or insignificant, and everybody has something to contribute to the solutions. So we want to be working together with everybody that is around doing this kind of thing and needing this kind of work. We're going to talk about how it's built. So think again of architectural design or engineering design blueprints. So for SafetyNet, we have three areas that we call functional areas, where stuff happens. And they each have a number of standards under them, and those standards are like the building blocks of the entire program. So the first area is the program administration area. It's like the headquarters, the command center. It's like, how is this program going to be built? What resources are going to be dedicated to it? How big is it going to be? What are areas that it needs to be beefed up? What policies are going to be backing all this up? Will there be staff dedicated to running those programs? So we have 6 standards that are associated with all those specifics of providing a way to run such a program, as opposed to having somebody who has 6 big titles on their plate already, and they're given one more that is staff wellness, like go figure it out and see you later. And so we want to have a dedicated resource and plan moving forward for program administration. The next area is prevention. I personally am really big on prevention. I think that it's a lot easier to prevent something to some degree at least than to try to fix it after it breaks. And so we have 7 standards under that functional area of prevention that address work conditions, a lot of different types of training, because a lot of it depends on education and practicing new skills. And then the whole thing of the culture wellness, because it's really hard to stay healthy in an unhealthy environment. So prevention is like if you were living in the tropics and there's torrential rain all the time, being given boots to wear for the rain and a raincoat and having a big umbrella. So after that, we have the third functional area, which is intervention. If in spite of all efforts, something's happened and people are affected, which is likely to happen because of the nature of the job and the types of exposure staff have at work, then it's like, what do we do if somebody is affected? Like officer down, but it's not officer down physically, it's officer down emotionally, spiritually. So we have 5 standards for that, about programs to like the healing aspect, the recovery, programs, services, and resources. And we have those 5 standards. And intervention to me is like the analogy of if people get soaked anyway, their umbrella breaks apart and they get soaked, having hair dryers and towels to provide to them to dry themselves off. And we have 2 of those standards are optional for this area. Actually, in the whole program, 2 are optional, but there are 18 in total. Dave, it's all yours now.
Well, thanks, Katarina. So Katarina talked about the functional areas and how we break down the standards. So let's take a look at one of the standards. This particular standard 1.2, it's on our wellness plan. So if you look up our standards, and they're all available on the website, they're all going to look very similar to this. So the standard is going to have a number. It's going to tell you the title of the standard. It's going to tell you which of the 3 functional areas it comes under. And it's going to tell you the wellness dimensions. And some of them are specific to certain wellness dimensions. If you remember back from a few minutes ago, we followed the 8 dimensions from SAMHSA. There's different models. That's the one that we happen to like. And then we go into the standards language. In terms of a wellness program, it's critical that agencies have an overall plan. Greg mentioned a lot of agencies doing piecemeal things, we're going to try this, we're going to try that, but we're looking for a comprehensive plan. And the plan, the standard, this particular one has 7 bullet points, and these are really considered the minimum topics that an agency needs to have in a wellness plan. Agencies are always encouraged to exceed this. Standards by definition, really, and within any accreditation program, are minimum standards. At the very least, you have to do this. The standard language doesn't really tell you how you have to do it. It really defines the things that you have to do. And if we had 100 agencies accredited under SafetyNet, there would be 100 different looking wellness plans, because every agency is unique. Every agency is going to have different needs, different challenges. There's common areas, but there's differences as well. So you're going to write a wellness plan that's going to be comprehensive for your location. After the standards is called the section on compliance indicators. And when we do the assessment part of SafetyNet accreditation, these are the things that we're going to be looking at, that the assessor is going to be looking at. So we're going to look at surveys, and you are going to be doing surveys as part of this, interviewing staff, looking at program goals to see, are you really in compliance with this? Staff interviews are really a critical part of this. When we get to the end, you'll see there is a site visit where staff interviews will be a part of that, because staff interviews really tell whether or not an agency is taking this or anything else seriously. We talk in accreditation training sometimes about operational compliance versus file compliance. And I can put things in a file that show that I'm doing something, but that only shows that I did it that time. they're going to want to see operational compliance, that you really are embracing this. Then there's also comments and justification. Comments kind of explain why these are in here, and justification talks about why this is a standard. In developing this, you've heard the word comprehensive over and over again, but it could also get so comprehensive that it would be undoable. It looks like a lot, and it is a lot, but it covers all of the critical areas of wellness without getting to the point that it's so big that nobody could really ever do it. Some of the standards also have outcome measures, and outcome measures are really going to help you more than anything see whether what you're doing is helping you. If you are going to implement a program and you're going to devote time and resources to this, what do you want to get out of it? We look at doing baseline surveys related to wellness, and we do annual surveys related to wellness. And the hope is that as you increase your wellness offerings, that you're going to see improvements in those surveys, that staff are going to respond that they are less unwell, is that a thing? More well, and hopefully as a result of what you're doing. We're also going to look at some internal data like sick leave use, FMLA use, that hopefully, if staff are more well, you may see some decreases in these areas, which is going to help with your overall coverage. Things like uses of force, disciplinaries, and Lord forbid we want to try to get completely rid of staff suicides. These type of things are not necessarily directly related to wellness, but staff who are not well, not functioning optimally, may be more inclined to make bad decisions. And we would hope that these types of things, which causes all kinds of other problems for agencies, that these things can be brought back into line. There's no way that we're going to ever get rid of these things in a correctional environment, particularly use of force, but we hope that we see decreases of use of force, decrease of disciplinary issues, decreases of things that we can say there is some nexus to wellness for these things. So let's move on to the stages of SafetyNet accreditation. How does this program operate? So SafetyNet is divided into 7 stages. As you see on here, exploration, self-evaluation, action plan development, action plan implementation, file review, site visit, and commission review. Exploration is the first step. It's where the agency really looks at the standards, all of the accompanying materials that are all on the website, and submits the agency information to Desert Waters. The information form contains just some basic information about the agency, what your mission is, what your size is, what kind of current wellness initiatives do you have. It's really designed to let SafetyNet or let the Desert Waters team get to know the agency a little bit better. The next step is a self-evaluation. And self-evaluation, the agency is going to look at each of the standards in depth, in some cases even bullet point by bullet point, and determine their degree of compliance with each element of the standard. It's not a right or wrong. It's not a, you have to be doing at least this many, or you can't come and join our team and play with us. It's just it's matter for you to know where you are. You're probably already doing some of the things. Some of the things you may not even have thought of or haven't even started, but it's really kind of gives you a sense of where you are in terms of the standards. And once this is done, then the agency will submit this to Desert Waters along with a provisional timeline for how long they think that this is going to be taking. Once you've completed the self-evaluation, then the agency staff is going to be meeting with Desert Waters to discuss the evaluation. And this is the part where we really become very interactive. I know with a lot of accreditation programs, and I've been involved with quite a few over my career, you kind of get the material, they tell you what needs to be done, and they say, let us know when you're ready for your assessment or your audit. We really attempted to model wellness in the implementation of this program. so that we're not just giving you a referral to someplace and saying, good luck. We're going to really help you to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses, and what you are going to need to do, and give you some ideas and some guidance about what you need to do to develop an action plan that's going to get you to the point that you're ready and say, we're ready to get this rolling and become accredited. The action plan development is going to include policies and procedures that you need to develop or that you enhance. What training curricula do you need? What services and resources do you need to be developed? It's really your roadmap for how you're going to implement your wellness program and leading to accreditation. Once the action plan has been approved, then the agency is going to move into the implementation stage. This is probably the most complex part of the process, as well as the longest. We don't anticipate that this is going to be a simple thing. Agencies are going to be starting with SafetyNet in very different places. Some of you may already have very robust wellness programs in place. Some of you may just have realized that you need one and you have absolutely nothing. It's really not about where you are and where you start, but where you're going to finish. And again, this is where we are going to be able to help you as you're implementing a plan, and as you see roadblocks that you hadn't anticipated, we're going to be there to support you and give you guidance along the way. When you reach the point of wanting to demonstrate compliance, then you will be creating an assessment and attaching proofs of compliance to this. The standards are going to be available in Power DMS. For those of you who use Power DMS, we're going to be encouraging you to do that. If for some reason you absolutely cannot use Power DMS, we do not want that to be an impediment, but it does simplify the process and for us doing a lot of remote work and be able to work with you. Once you have uploaded your proofs from a file standpoint, then we're going to schedule a file review to go over those with you. The reason we do this earlier in the process than most accreditation programs do is that if there are issues, we would like to help you identify them and give you time to take some corrective action before there's an on-site hearing. You may actually opt to, at the file review stage, say, here's our policy, we haven't implemented it yet. Here's our curriculum, we haven't rolled it out yet. We want to make sure that we're on the right track before we roll it out. That's fine. If that helps for you, we can look at it and say, okay, yeah, your policies look great, or no, I think you need to develop this one a little bit more, back and forth until you get to the point that everything looks like it is in compliance with the standards. Once everything is done, implemented, your files have all passed, then we're going to be scheduling a site review. We anticipate with 18 standards that this will be one assessor coming out for one day, but it really it's important to give to take a look at things and see operationally, is it really being done? Is it being embraced? Staff are hopefully feeling positive about it, that this really is a place that seems like it's well in its way for a good wellness program. After the site visit, then there will be a report generated by the assessor that will go to the commission for review. If after the site visit, there's felt like, you're not there yet, again, that's not the end of the road. This is going to be a process where we're going to tell you, this is what we think you need to do. And you'll have a chance to do that and take some corrective action, and then still get to the point where you can become accredited. There will be a sort of commission review. They will be the ones making the final decisions on accreditation, hopefully culminating with the granting of an accreditation award. So there's going to be two phases to this process. Functional area 1, as Katerina described before, is the standards that relates to your program. And we thought it was important to give agencies some acknowledgement of what they have created along the way. So once you have everything in place for your accreditation plan, and those standards that go along with that, and the team and so forth, we have the opportunity to review all those and grant provisional accreditation. And hopefully that is going to help some agencies that, first of all, that you get to see some fruits of your labors, and maybe also for those agencies who are struggling to justify it or get ongoing support, to be able to say, okay, look, here's where we are. We've got provisional accreditation. We're well on our way for it. It gives you something tangible in place. After you implement all of them, and we do the site visit, and we assess that everything is great and it's meeting all the standards, and it's been reviewed by the commission, then you will get granted full accreditation. So as I said at the beginning, this is going to be very much customized, and every agency's has different needs. They have different settings. They have different resources. So we really expect this to be an individual plan for everybody. Katerina, I think, mentioned 2 of the 18 standards are optional. One of them has to do with animal assistance programs. We're not going to require you to have an animal assistance program. A lot of agencies have implemented them and find that they are very helpful. If you do it, there are certain things that you have to do to make sure you're doing it right and running an effective program. The other one has to do with peer support, and there was a lot of discussion around the area of peer support. And again, this is an area that a lot of agencies throughout public safety have found to be very helpful. It's also a program that if you're going to implement it, it has to be implemented in under very strict protocols. So we say to agencies, if you're going to have a formal peer support program, and let's face it, peer support goes on all the time. Peer support may be you and I sitting down after work and talking about your day. That's not what we're talking about here. If you have a formal peer support program, then here are the standards that really need to be in place to make sure that it does more good than harm. SafetyNet involves ongoing data collection and analysis to help you gauge your wellness needs, your program effectiveness. We're going to provide a lot of that. We're going to provide the information that you need to collect, the surveys, so that we can kind of aggregate all that for you and take some of that burden off of you to do it automatically. And also consultation with you from the very beginning, and even after you're accredited. We don't ever want you to be a point where you feel like, we're Desert Waters, we're done with you, you're accredited, now go on about your way, good luck. This is going to be a collaborative process from the beginning until you get sick of us and don't want us around anymore, which hopefully will not be ever. Steph, back to you.
Thanks, Sam. We're going to turn and now look at some of the potential long-term benefits of SafetyNet accreditation. I always say that when you start looking at staff wellness, you really have to look at playing the long game. This is not something that's a one and done shot in the arm. I had somebody at work the other day say, let's dose them with some wellness. That's not really what we're talking about here. So we're going to look at some of the potential long-term benefits here, which is, of course, the improved workplace culture. If we implement a comprehensive wellness program, it's going to lead us to expect that some of these benefits of fostering healthier workforce culture it's obviously going to impact staff morale. It's going to impact how people feel about their job. It's going to impact how they talk about their job. I often say how people talk about their workplace culture, that's either your biggest recruiting tool, or it's your biggest recruiting liability, because how people are talking on social media about administrators who care, about a workplace that really cares, or the opposite is, that is certainly impacting your ability to get people to come and work for you or to stay working for you. And really, we want the narrative to be that we take care of our own. We take care of our people that come and work for this agency. Also, we would expect that with well-implemented comprehensive wellness program, you're going to see an increased likelihood of their health and functioning, personal functioning. And, that could be physically, psychologically, spiritually. And certainly if people are healthy in those areas, you're looking at reduced suicide risk, you're looking at a healthier family life, you're looking at the reduction of family breakups. And we know that all of those things that are happening outside the walls are certainly impacting staff when they come in to work. There is no such thing as checking that at the gate, one direction or the other, no matter what we tell ourselves. And so certainly another potential long-term benefit of that is their personal life, which in turn is going to impact the workplace. Obviously, if people are well and feeling good about where they're working, you're looking at a reduction of work-related sick leave, potentially, a reduction of FMLA, healthier people who are physically and psychologically healthy are not using these things listed here, workers' comp. You're looking at a reduced probability or liability of staff misconduct or error, and the legal implications that are surrounded with that and associated litigation. We all can sit here and probably name the very special case that we're mandated training right now by consent decree. I know that when I was working for a department, it was a constant barrage of, well, now we have to do training around this, now we have to do training around that. And it was usually things associated with department or agency lack of resources that resulted in behaviors that got us to that point. And in the big picture, really long term, what we're looking at is a recruitment tool, a retention tool, a staff engagement tool. When you're implementing that staff wellness program, you are targeting these specific areas right now that we know are hot button issues in every industry. And your agency's mission is going to be more likely to be fulfilled on a more regular basis if we can have these things all working in conjunction with each other. And so I'm really excited that SafetyNet is presenting this strategy and this plan to start addressing these areas that we all know are so essential to running our facilities and our agencies well. We often say that our staff is our most valuable resource, and I think that SafetyNet is one of those signals to our staff that we really believe in that, and we're aligning that value and that behavior in this manner. I'm going to turn it over to Katerina.
Thank you, Stephanie. So let's talk about the so-called bottom line on the financial end. And for this year, we have made the decision as an introductory step forward to keep costs to a bare minimum and have it be $4,900 per facility. And that will include the 20 hours of consultation, the walking alongside and coming up with a program development and consultation, reviewing policies, for example, and offering the staff surveys and some basic statistics and the file review and the agency visit for a 3-year accreditation cycle. And then we have some add-ons, which are the travel expenses for the agency site visit. If an agency needs assistance with writing policy and they want to make it like a time-saving thing to have us write the policy for them, developing the training curriculum and instructor training so that they will train their coworkers or deliver the actual training to the staff. And if any more advanced statistical analyses are needed, are requested about the surveys or outcome measures, these would be add-ons. As we wrap this presentation up on our end, in a nutshell, the conclusions are that really the complexity of the whole issue of wellness, the concept and its implementation in an operational way, and the seriousness and severity of staff's functioning and health, their unwellness levels really require something rigorous and with accountability built in and evaluation measures, as opposed to flavor of the month approaches or limited area of impact. And SafetyNet has been built to be the best at this point of what, based on the research that is available, to be based on data, organized, comprehensive, and holistic. And also the whole thing of being correction sensitive and correction specific, and evaluate on an ongoing basis effectiveness of the approaches and the interventions. And we, based on other studies and experiences, we can say that those standards, if they're properly applied over time, they are going to become building blocks of wellness, and staff will be affected positively by them and increasingly get healthier, both individually and as a workforce culture, as a result of having those standards being available and implemented in their agencies. These are some references that you'll get with the recording of on which we base the research. Data we had earlier about the conditions, the mental health conditions that staff reported on. So these are just for that. They're not for the whole program. You will see resources and references, the annotated bibliography on our website with references per functional area, per standard. We have questions, and I know we had some really good chat posts.
We have a few questions that were put in the chat. So thank you. If there's more, we encourage you to put your questions in the chat, and our panel will be happy to answer those.
I can address the second question regarding budget. I actually have a little bit of experience in that realm. I completely understand and have walked the path of not having a budget for a staff wellness program at a large state prison system, and also now in another state, in a different industry, in the same capacity. I want to just share with you some workarounds around the actual titled wellness budget, wellness program budget. I will tell you that several agencies get around that by just having it come out of their general fund. I will tell you that I ran a large statewide staff wellness program in corrections with zero budget for almost 5 years. And so a lot of the funding for our training, our education, and different things came out of training budget dollars because we were training. A lot of what we were doing was education and training. We had funds that were designated for different general expenses, miscellaneous expenses. And so we really did beg, borrow, and steal for quite a few years to get the program going. But let me tell you what that did long term. As we got the program going in kind of that impoverished setting, we were able to write legislative mandates that were adopted by the legislature that said the agency must provide a staff wellness program. And when those standards that went into our unified code of corrections went into effect, the legislature or the agency had no choice but to start funding it. And so we ended up, I just want to encourage you all that are kind of facing that barrier, think around the wall in front of you and work from it backwards if you have the opportunity, because you can do a lot with very little to get going. And then once you get going and your program begins to build and build and build, and it becomes a non-negotiable in your agency because staff have gotten used to it and you're seeing the positive effects of it, and you've got data to show. So like my agency was able to show an incredible drop in staff suicide rates after just 3 years. And then once you start getting in place some of your different programming, you could, it's almost a forced funding issue at that point. So I just want to encourage you guys that I've stood in those shoes, and you've got to get creative, but it's worth it, because when you're playing the long game, some of those short-term pain points, they will pay off in the end. So if anybody has any further questions on that, please feel free to reach out to Desert Waters, and I'd be happy to discuss that further and answer your question, maybe more in depth.
I'll mention one other thing about resources, and this kind of came up on one specific standard about animal intervention programs. One of the things that we have, and I address that directly, but one of the things that we're providing, and I think it should be available already, Katerina confirmed this, is going to be a pretty extensive bibliography that goes along with each section. And this is going to be a dynamic area that, as we found, we found that there was really a dearth of research on wellness and corrections specifically. So we kind of cast a little bit wider net, and we found a lot of stuff that has to do with law enforcement, stuff has to do with military, similar scenarios, similar challenges. PTSD is not unique to the service or to corrections, or it has a lot of people, but we've included this in a pretty extensive annotated resource area. And we're very thankful that we had Greg, who's pretty good at doing that and enjoys it. An annotated bibliography that you're going to be able to look at. So if you really want to dive into why is this important? Why do we need to have an entire standard on nutrition? Why do we need to have an entire standard on physical fitness? We really tried very hard not to include anything that there wasn't pretty solid evidence that it was important. And we put all of that solid evidence in this bibliography. So that's going to be growing. We even encourage you to, if you find something in one of these areas and say, wow, this is really great, send it in. There was an episode on 60 Minutes this weekend, I don't know if anybody saw it, on PTSD, but looking at children, particularly of service members who have PTSD and the impact that PTSD has on them. So yeah, we have language in the standards pertaining to services to families, and it really further validated that. But that's the kind of thing that we're going to make sure is available for everybody. So if you want to just read it at the surface and say, I trust you that this is important, that's great. If you really want to take the deep dive into it, because you're one of those people, yeah, please feel free. We're gonna help you with that.
And then another comment about starting with the training, that we are of course ready to fulfillment training, but nothing changing other than that training. It was a one-time event. People got the training and nothing changed. And that's why we need a comprehensive program, not just a training here and there. That's why we need different facets of wellness. Training is only one of those tools in the toolbox. It's not the whole toolbox. And that's what we're pushing. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Greg. That's what I was gonna say, Katerina. The idea that a single training class will change a workforce culture, that would be wonderful if it were the case, but that's what led Desert Waters to consider the need for SafetyNet for the accreditation.
Right.
It's
Right. We need a
Yes.
wraparound, ongoing,
Yes.
tenacious, relentless approach, because the stress is tenacious and relentless, affecting the staff.
And I will add a positive reframe to that I've started using. I do believe that this is the future of the profession. I think there's enough data in all kinds of first responder and military service, like Dave said, that professions where I just can't see how we can go backwards on this culturally. So anyway, a lot of commentary that goes with that, up to and including, the new employees that you hire. These are the future targets for the SafetyNet accreditation for wellness. Those are the folks when they retire. That's the objective, the long game that Stephanie mentioned.
That's what we believe indirectly will affect retention and quality of functioning on the job. So yeah, it will take work on the front end, but otherwise it will be the same old, and we cannot afford that. The profession cannot afford that.
And we got the follow-up comment now about top-down commitment. Leaders go first. absolutely, that's the case. And if an agency, that really is one of the first what would I say, check marks we would work with an agency on that was applying for SafetyNet accreditation is what is the top-down resource and policy commitment here?
So
Yeah,
that's the issue of agency culture that we talk about, and we
Yep.
talked about it a lot in developing the standards and how to address it. And it's, you know, it's really it's easy to put in a standard that you do a specific thing. It's it's harder to write in there about having a supportive culture, but that's certainly something that we talk to the agents about. It's certainly part of the site visit and interviewing staff. If it was as simple as just having you go through one program in the academy and then you were done, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because everybody would be doing that one thing and nobody would be having wellness issues. But it is so multifaceted, and you know, it's kind of like if you got a physical exam when you turned 18, and then that's all you needed for the rest of your life. The doctor said, eat healthy, exercise, and you're going to be fine. I don't ever need to see you again. You know, we'd have a lot of people dying a lot earlier than they need to. So you have to be diligent with this. And I mean, everybody here, if you're here, you probably know that. But that's a tough one. And I will tell you, having been an agency head, it always comes down to leadership. If there was a failure in the agency, then I was failing as a leader. And it's, you know, you've got to be relentless about this. Look at the problems that you're having. You know, are you short-staffed? Are you having, you know, issues? I mean, if everything's going great, you got plenty of employees, you're not, no excessive sick leave, everybody shows up for work, people come there, work 30 years and retire, nobody wants to leave, you may not need this. I'm not sure that place exists. I've never seen it. But yeah, what are the problems? And maybe this can be part of the solution. But yeah, it can't be a one and done. It's got to be something that you do, and it just ingrained in your culture. And you know, and you hope when you do a site visit and you talk to staff and say, you know, what do you tell me about your agency's, you know, wellness initiatives? And what you hope to hear is, God, I get so sick of hearing about wellness. They're constantly talking about wellness. They talk about wellness in roll calls. We get stuff from the administration about wellness. Yeah, this is really a chance for administration. If you follow I follow some corrections social media sites. What do you constantly hear? Administration doesn't care about us. You know, they don't listen to us. They don't care about us. Well, guess what? This is the chance for them to really express that maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. But this is a chance for them to show that we're doing this for the staff. We want you to be healthy, and we're doing it for you.
Well, great. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. Just for those of you who asked, I saw a question there. We are going to be recording this, and we will be making it available on the Desert Waters YouTube channel. And everyone that has registered, you'll get an email with the link for this recording as well. So we just want to thank you all for being with us today. And just want to give you one parting note. We will be having another webinar here on May 30th, same time. You can be looking out for a flyer that'll be coming out as well for that, and it will be called Reflections on the Construction of Successful Wellness Programs. And that'll be a panel discussion webinar. So that'll be more of a full-on Q&A, talking points, no presentation to keep track of, but more discussions and Q&A like we've kind of been doing here. So we encourage everyone to attend that and be on the lookout on your email and on social media for that information. And you can go to the Desert Waters website and register there for that webinar as well. So thank you so much for being with us, and we hope you all have a great day. Take care.